Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? It's another weekly edition of the show, live on YouTube, podcast form, all that fun stuff. I'm Matthew Hunter. Hit the like button, share the show, all that. Again, fun stuff of YouTube and, these sort of platforms. I'm writing solo dolo today as Gary is unfortunately not available for the show. If you can, please go hit him up on social media at 3D Boxing Blog, link below in the description, and just say some sort of well wishes, some good vibes, and send Gary some good vibes. He's having a very bad day. Rob is unfortunately unavailable as well, so it's me, guys. Solo dolo. Anthony Joshua, Kubrat Pulev, Shakur Stevenson, Chris Colbert, and the Bridgerweight division. Yes! God help me. God help me. This is going to be a rough one. Especially when we get to the Bridgerweight division. That is going to be just a pure hellhole of topics. I really wish Gary was on for that topic, because if there's one person that can rant close to my ability, it is Gary. And we need as many rants about the WBC as possible. Let's be honest, guys. And like I said, hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. And plus, since I'm solo dolo, I do want to interact with you guys as much as possible. So please get in the live chat and ask me some questions, some topics, whatever it may be. I would love to have a sort of dialogue with you guys, of course. But without further ado, let's get into the obvious fight of the year: Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev. I mean, what can we speak? What can we really say about this fight that I think is not the most obvious surface level thing? Because I feel like this fight is a very surface level fight where there isn't much analysis needed to be done. You have two guys that are big, that have massive reaches comparative to the division, fight in a very traditional style that are almost like mirror images of each other. And there's a reason why Anthony Joshua was brought in for sparring when Klitschko fought Kubrat Pulev, is because they fight in very similar fashion. So this fight feels like it's going to be a sort of classic battle of the jabs for 12 rounds. And I keep trying to envision how it could be different, how it can be more entertaining than that, how Anthony Joshua can have more success than just the jab, or vice versa, how Kubrat Pulev could have more success than just the jab. And it's hard. It seems like it's we're stretching to find something. The only thing I can really have is that, well, we've seen Anthony Joshua fight another tall, rangy jabber, so to speak, a guy that is very traditional in his style and approach before, and it turned out to be a really fun fight, and that was the Klitschko fight, of course. But Kubrat Pulev isn't Klitschko. You know what I mean? He doesn't present the same amount of sort of foil to Anthony Joshua as Klitschko did. So it's just extremely hard for me to predict an outcome here that is not, again, a battle of the jabs. That's predominantly a pretty boring battle for 12 rounds. I would love to see people in the chat sort of point out any other paths of victory here for either guy, right? Maybe Joshua gets in the mid-range and is able to sort of throw a few more combinations and get him out of there with an uppercut or a left hook or something like that. But it seems like that would be that's unlikely comparative to the 12-round decision we are going to see. Team Batman Boxing saying, I see AJ stopping him before 9 rounds. Matthew D'Souza saying, when I saw Pulev beat Fury, I thought he was tailor-made for AJ to KO early. AJ has, of course, become more vulnerable since then. What do you see, guys? I value, of course, everyone that listens to this show, especially those that listen for a long time, because I, get to understand and know you guys a little better, of course. I trust Matthew D'Souza and Team Batman Boxing with their analysis. What do you see in Pulev or in AJ, or the combination of the two, of course, that leads you to thinking that AJ can finish him either early or in sort of the mid to late rounds? I just don't see it. AJ, to me, is not the greatest finisher in the world. just being honest. You know, you have to go back to his sort of rise to the top to see him really be a great finisher, or some of his sort of tune-up style title defenses, like a Dominic Brazil, for example, or people like that. But again, we're seeing mirror images of each other fighting, and when that happens, you're far more likely to get a tepid, sort of boring fight, because neither guy can really commit on what they do best or sort of get into their momentum, because the other guy's doing the same thing, and therefore that this sort of stalemate, you know, and that's what I see happening here. Pulev's lack of hand speed, this Team Batman boxing saying, Pulev's lack of hand speed, and if AJ opens up with combinations, I see Pulev going down. But see, AJ's not a combination puncher. Like, when he does open up in combinations, it's 2s or 3s, right? So it's a 1-2, it's a left hook uppercut. It's never in 3s, 4s, 5s. You know, like, he never throws, in my opinion, because I really don't count, 2-punch combos as combinations, to be quite honest. I just don't. And in regards of talking about combination work within a fight, a 2-punch combo isn't really doing it for me. You need to throw in 3s and 4s, maybe 5s. And Joshua just doesn't do that. And on top of it, I don't think Joshua is a guy that traditionally has thrown at high volume. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't see him as a volume puncher in any way. So it's just that, Pulev and Joshua can get close enough to where AJ can land a 2-piece and put him out. Maybe. I mean, that's a possibility, of course, but I just see into the looking glass, seeing the crystal ball, and it's a 12-round snoozer. It's a 12-round staring contest more than anything. Parker and Ruiz are smaller men with hand speed. AJ prefers taller men, and Pulev is slow. Yeah, I guess. But I just don't see it. I just don't see this fight ending quick. That's for sure. Like, maybe late. I could potentially see that, like a 9, 10, 11th round finish. I could see that. But anything else? Not so much. Not so much. Like, you look at like his early finishes, right? Eric Molina, Charles Martin, who else? Gary Cornish, and then you go back into fights that really predominantly don't matter, right? Dylan White was round 7. Dominic Brazil was round 7. Klitschko round 11. Takam was round 10, though that was, in my opinion, going to the decision. He got lucky. I don't see AJ as like that guy that like you can always count on finishing the top level. I do consider Pulev at the top level, even though he's boring. He's like Andrade, like you can't discount his actual skills. You can absolutely discount his sort of entertainment value, of course, but he is a skillful heavyweight. I think that you can't really deny that. Scott Brown saying over 6.5 is almost even money. What's bookies have this fight at plus 350 to go the distance, says Scott Brown. I would bet. I'm not a bettor, and I don't really do that because I'm poor. But yeah, I would definitely put some money on this fight going the distance. Put $20 on it, $50 on it, whatever you have to spend on it. That's what I would do, because this fight's going the distance. You had a layoff on top of it too. It's hard. It's really hard to see how AJ has massive success. Scott Brown saying AJ dropped Ruiz. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He then got knocked out, though. So, it happens. That's hilarious. Parker Ruiz or Solomon. Oh, you already read that. AJ by decision is like plus 440. Oh, my God. Absolutely do that. Yes. Yes. Scott Brown saying you're gonna win some money some money back from fading Joyce. I don't know what that means per se, but I assume he means supporting or not discounting Joyce. Yeah, probably. If I bet money on Dubois, fuck. 2 things I'm interested in, says Matthew D'Souza. The weight AJ comes in as and Pulev's tactics. I think, well, look, AJ's weight. Let's look at his last few fights here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. 237 for Rees, 247 for the first fight with Rees, 245, 242, 254, 250, 249, 243, 244. I don't think the weight's an issue at all. It's at most you're looking at a 10-pound difference, to be honest, and I don't think that's a big deal. I'll be honest. At that weight, adding another 10 pounds of muscle or lean muscle, or taking it away, I don't think it matters, to be honest. So when you get up to that weight, you're talking about like 20, 30, 40 pounds of mass having a difference just due to percentages. Like that weight is only a certain percentage of your, 10-pound difference on 240 pounds is like how much percentage is that of your total mass? When you're a 112-pound fighter, 10 pounds is a far bigger percentage. Team Batman Boxing saying dropped everyone other than Parker. He dropped Tackham? I don't think he dropped Tackham. That was just called off, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, and then you said Tackham. My bad. You and Caron DeBa, LOL, please gamble responsibly. Well, luckily I don't gamble because I don't have money. So there you go. But, I mean, no one predicts Pulev to have much success here other than if the fight is just tepid, therefore, AJ's not going to have a lot of success, right? No one sees Pulev having, a real path to victory unless AJ completely shits the bed. And that just seems unlikely. Chris, Scott, since you have all the betting odds in front of you probably, what's the straight-up odds for AJ Pulev? Wonder what those are. What else is on this card? Let's get to the card itself now, because I'm not going to go too much longer into that fight. I will talk about, obviously, what's next for AJ in a second, whether it's Wilder or Fury and the news that's been coming out in a second. But let me just get through this undercard really fast, because there's not much to talk about, especially since the Lawrence Okolie and Glocki fight got canceled. It's now Lawrence Okolie versus... I don't know who that is. Nikodem Jawitsky? Who is this guy? I have no idea who this person is. Interesting. AJ is a minus 1,000. Yeah, that seems about right. Fury versus Maurice Rock. It's... that fight's going to be really, really boring. Martin Bukoli versus Sergey Kuzman. I'm interested. I don't think either guy is really that high level, to be quite honest. They kind of seem like, 20, 30 ranked level heavyweights, in my opinion. But hell, fuck it. It's an even fight, in my opinion. It's intriguing enough. The winner's going to advance up the rankings and get a bigger opponent, most likely. So at least that's important to pay attention to. And that's about it for people that I know or care about on this card, to be quite honest. Now, what's happening with AJ? What's happening next for either the biggest superstar in the sport or the second biggest superstar in the sport right now? And I think it's pretty obvious with where we're heading, but maybe it's not depending what you see. And what I mean by that is quite obvious. If you just see Eddie Hearn or AJ quotes, you only hear about Fury and Joshua. Hearn saying he's aiming to finalize the deal. Joshua hoping that WBO is not going to force the Usyk defense. All that stuff. We've been hearing that quite often, but unfortunately, on I think it was either today's workout or yesterday's public workout, I forget exactly, Sky Sports' own sort of telecast. I believe it's Sky Sports. I don't think it's Matchroom specifically, but if it's Matchroom specifically, then that's even funnier. But they were talking about how we're not getting Fury AJ. We're most likely getting Fury Wilder 3. which means, as good old UK Rob says, Joshua Usyk, anyone? So let's listen to this clip.
There's a very interesting guy over there. He's called Naz, right? And he is very close to both Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. So he sort of flips between the two camps. So he's a great sort of font of information. He's actually helped with the sparring partners up in Sheffield, but he's always around Deontay on fight week and the build up there. So you sort of get some gossip from him. You sort of feel what's happening. And he believes that Deontay Wilder is preparing for Tyson Fury. So according to him, it may take a little bit longer this fight.
I totally agree, because I was speaking to one of Tyson's representatives 2 days ago, and they were saying the signing of the contract is imminent in regards to he and Wilder. So I totally get you. But as you sort of talk about Naz is there. You know what? I'd love to pin him down and torture some information out of him, because he could tell us so many stories about.
It's a very interesting.
So Wilder's training for Fury. Johnny Nelson has other sources saying that a deal is imminent for Fury Wilder 3. So just be aware when we're getting the Eddie Hearn fucking spin cycle on Fury AJ. And to be honest, the hype for this fight, meaning AJ Pulev, is on the back of the hype of Fury Joshua. So you have to understand that tactic there as a promoter. It's not going to come to fruition, at least not now, of course. It seems like we're getting, per even Sky Sports, that we're not getting Joshua Fury. We're getting Fury Wilder, and we're going to get Joshua Usyk. Which, I'll be honest, I kind of want to see more at this point in time. I want to see some finality to the Wilder-Fury saga before we move on. Like I think Gary said before, like Fury's time in the sport is probably short, in terms of like long-term time in the sport. He has a few big fights in him, and he's done. That's what it seems like. So I want the finality of Wilder before we move off of it, and we never get that finality. Even though I know there's some out there, and a lot of listeners think that we've already had that finality in the second fight, I still want to see a third fight. Let's just be honest. Scott Brown. My DAZN sub has ended, not renewing for this fight card. Yeah, especially since it's just it's main event heavy, right? Like, that's all it is. Like I said, like the Bukoli-Sergey Kuzma fight's a okay fight, but it's not one we want to pay $20 a month for, or $100 a year. It's not worth it. You can wait. Wait till wait till next week for Canelo. Even then, do you even have to pay for this shit anymore? I mean, come on. Like, that's the reality here. Like, sorry. You can just find it on other sites. But regardless, back to what's next for Joshua. Like I said, I think Usyk's going to happen next for him. I like the fight. I think Joshua's going to win the fight and potentially actually look better in that fight than the Pulev fight. I'll be honest. I think Usyk's going to present a more intriguing matchup. Therefore, we're going to be more hyped for it. And will also be a just more entertaining fight. Like, in terms of style matchup, that one seems to be an entertaining matchup. While obviously Joshua Pulev seems to be a boring matchup in every single way. It is what it is. Scott Brown saying you're going to sign up for a Garcia Campbell, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good fight. And I have the year subscription already. I already renewed that shit, so we're here. Matthew D'Souza agreeing with me. Wow. I can't believe I have someone agreeing with me in the chat right now. I actually really want Wilder Fury 3. I mean, how can you not? I mean, both fights were really fun. Both build-ups were fun. Both events seemed fun. When we talk about this era of heavyweight, after it's done, right? 10, 20, 30 years from now, right? We're going to talk about Wilder Fury. It may not be the thing we talk about when it's all said and done, but it's definitely one of the top, if not the top right now. So I don't understand the idea and like the elitist mentality of like, oh, we don't need that. Huh. No. We don't want that bullshit, that trash. Huh. That legacy-defining trilogy? Never. We don't want that. Which is so funny because like we also get a lot of fans out there saying like, oh, these guys aren't fighting each other 3-4 times a year like Sugar Ray Robinson or Pacquiao or whoever they bring up, right? But when Wilder Fury do it, it's like, no, we don't want that. Just weird. It's just weird. Lemon Ninja saying, haven't seen you since boxing voice days. Damn, that's a while then. Just popped up on my suggested. Glad to have you back on my screen, bro. Well, Lemon Ninja, I don't remember you from TBV days. I apologize, but thank you for being back, I guess, and thank you for enjoying the content now. There's a lot you've probably missed because I've been gone for, 2 years now, I think? At least 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. So, yeah, a lot of content out there to watch. I did put a lot of it, if you want just review shows for big fights over the last couple of years, I don't know, a Inoue Donaire or Pacquiao Thurman, and you want to see my take on it. I think I put a lot of those key review shows and stuff like that, sort of evergreen content, in our featured video section at the very top of our YouTube page. I believe there's also a preview/review playlist in our YouTube page as well that has them all. So if you want to see, again, evergreen content as well. Oh, another thing, Lemon Ninja, since you're back, I will say this. I did do a video, and I wanted to do more of these sort of scripted content, but unfortunately I just don't have the time for it, and I went on to other projects. But I did do a top 5 scandals in boxing history video, which I will say is actually pretty fucking good, if I can say so myself. So recommend that. Matthew D'Souza, I'm so intrigued as to the narratives and the build-up and what tactics Wilder will have to deploy. Absolutely. Because he's going to have to switch it up. And if he doesn't, man, it's going to be faster than the second fight, right? If Wilder can't switch things up in any fashion, man, it's going to be bad. Really, really bad. If Wilder changes stuff up, then maybe it's a far more intriguing fight. I do feel like the third fight heavily leans towards Fury winning, of course, because I think Fury showed that he was obviously the better technical fighter in the first fight. He just got dropped a few times, and that changes the scorecards completely. But obviously in the second fight, he totally different tactics, totally different strategy as well, and went in there and just bulldozed Deontay Wilder. If you know you can do that, and you know that you're predominantly a far better boxer than him on the back foot, the paths of victory for you open up drastically. Wilder's path to victory was predominantly the right hand, maybe working off the jab. He can't do that. He has to do more. He has to, I think, evolve his game in ways that a almost mid-30s fighter often can't do. And obviously, like everyone said, the narratives of Glovegate, of Costume Gate, whatever, all the excuses, right? That people eat that shit up. Even though we all hate the excuses, we eat that shit up. Let's be honest. So imagine another buildup of that with Fury having all that material. It seems like it would be almost high theater for boxing, and obviously how we can get down into it. It seems like it's going to be crazy, fun, entertaining, and whatever happens in the fight will have some finality to it, in my opinion. Even if I was going to say even if Wilder wins, but I really don't think he wins the fight, to be honest. Imagine if Wilder KO Fury. If Wilder beats Fury in this trilogy fight, obviously we will get a fourth fight sooner rather than later, in my opinion. And that's one of those situations where I don't think any of us are really predicting how that goes, what that looks like, how Fury responds to lose. There's a lot there that we have to cross that bridge when we get there, if it happens. And it seems so unlikely. Digressing, though, that's it for the Joshua topics of the day, guys. If you guys have any other questions or topics or angles you want me to talk about when it comes to AJ Fury, AJ Pulev, Wilder, all that stuff, let me know as I'm pulling up the rest of the cards, because I didn't do that I apologize. The pre-show production got a little bit crazy, just out of other stuff. No. Santiago saying, well, shit. Looks like Julio Cesar Martinez is off the Canelo Smith card due to non-COVID related reasons. God damn it. The God Martinez, man. So sad. So sad. Let's talk about the Showtime card first, and then the Top Rank card. I do like the Showtime card a lot more. Chris Colbert versus Jaime Arboleda. Chris Colbert, to me, is a top 10 super featherweight. We had this discussion, I think, on like 2 shows ago, something like that, and we had the whole debate, I think, with Jay Protege about can we rank him in the top 10, and we went through the rankings and said, yeah, he can definitely slip in number 9 or number 10. This is not a step up. It's not even a sidestep from like Jezreel Corrales, so I'm not too happy about this matchup per se, though Jaime Arboleda is a decent fighter. Like, no sort of shit at him. Like, I think he's talented. I think he's, good regional guy, good domestic guy, good club level guy, but Chris Colbert's a world level guy that should beat him really decisively, clinically, hopefully get a finish. I know Chris Colbert's not a guy that finishes people predominantly, but I would like to see Chris Colbert to develop a little more of a mean streak, if that's possible. When he has a wounded animal in front of him, get him out of there. And I think Jaime Arboleda will definitely present opportunities to where Chris Colbert can capitalize more often and potentially get him out of there. Again, hopefully. What's next for Chris Colbert? I mean, he's been talking about Burchell, Leo Santa Cruz, Gervonta Davis, and Jamel Herring. I think all those matchups would be what I want to see from him next. Does he get one of those next? I don't know. I think Leo's not going to be, around for a minute to the knockout, to the paycheck. I think Leo might even retire, for being honest. So I don't know what's going to happen to Leo Santa Cruz. I don't think Gervonta Davis fights Chris Colbert. I just don't see it happening. I also don't see Gervonta Davis staying at 130 in any significant fashion. I see him going to 135 because those are bigger fights for him, and therefore you're going to go for the bigger fights. So it seems like with Chris Colbert, you're left in a position where you're going to have to work across the aisle. And hopefully, because Chris Colbert is also not a big star, Al Heyman and PBC are going to be far more willing to lend him out, so to speak, to like a Miguel Burchell, Oscar Valdez winner, right? Or a Shakur Stevenson winner, or a Jamel Herring, Carl Frampton winner. Like, hopefully we see that. Does it happen? I don't know. We do know that Al Heyman does send sort of like the B-sides over and the non-stars over. Is Chris Colbert in that body? Maybe due to his weight class too, where he's at in his career, they're more willing to send him over. I hope so, because Chris Colbert is one of the best prospects in the sport, and now, as he's slowly becoming a contender, one of the better contenders / prospects I've seen. Like when people talk about Shakur Stevenson and his sort of potential, or Devin Haney in terms of like his ability, I see that in Chris Colbert, to be quite honest. And I don't get why he stopped receiving the hype that he once had. I think it's probably just because he didn't get a lot of media attention for some reason. Don't know why that is. Lemon Ninja asking, did you see Yard versus Arthur? Yes, I did. I talked about it on the last show, I believe, right? Because that was the review of the weekend. So check out the last show, Lemon Ninja. That's when I reviewed all the last weekend's events, I believe. Because that happened on Friday last week, right? It wasn't 2 weeks ago. Again, been one of those days, guys. I apologize. Ronald Ellis versus Matt Koroboff, a intriguing fight. Ronald Ellis, obviously the lesser brother of Rashidi Ellis in terms of potential, sort of hype, of course. And it's mainly due to Ronald Ellis not being a heavy-handed fighter, not really being electrifying in any way like Rashidi Ellis is. And again, having fights where he had draws, losses, etc. He did pick up a decent win against Emmanuel Alim in his last fight, so shout out to him for that. But Matt Korobov is one of those guys that he beats up a lot of people that are kind of in that range, you know. But sometimes he doesn't. You know, it's weird because he fought Emmanuel Alim too, and he had a draw with him. So maybe Matt Korobov just doesn't throw enough, isn't active enough, and lets a fight go by, and it's a kind of a ho-hum affair. They're both throwing 30 punches around sort of fight, and it's not entertaining. That's definitely possible. I will say, though, it's similar to like the Bacoli and Sergey Kuzman fight. It's one of those fights where I'm not the most hyped for it, but it's clearly a good matchup. Like, I can't hate on the matchup and the pairing of them per se. I just know it's not the most entertaining fight because these guys are not the most entertaining fighters. And that's okay. Not everyone's going to be Provodnikov or Torgatti. You know, like, we get that, of course. Next up on the card, Richardson Hitchens versus Argenis Mendez. I really, really like this fight. I think this is one of those fights where we see what Hitchens has. Because he's one of those guys I've never been sold on. I've never thought he is the next guy in any sort of way. But he's obviously received a lot of attention, a lot of hype. And now he's fighting someone that we know that is a commodity, so to speak, in the division. So absolutely excited to see what we have in Richardson Hitchens. Because now we can see. And before we couldn't. I don't think he's going to look that impressive per se. I think he's going to win a decision, but not be the most impressive in that decision. Next up on Top Rank, Felix Verdejo is fighting versus Masayuichi Nakatani. I hope Nakatani beats him up, and that'd be funny, just being honest. Edgar Blanca on the card, Roberto Ramirez on the card, Clay Collard on the card, so it should be entertaining, so to speak, undercard for what Top Rank can deliver nowadays. But obviously the main event, Shakur Stevenson versus Tokakon Clary, is not the fight I really wanted to see, but is arguably a step up for Shakur Stevenson in his career. His best opponent today is still Joet Gonzalez, and I don't think highly of Joet Gonzalez. I think he's a borderline top 15 guy, maybe top 20 guy. You know, Tokakon Clary is at least a veteran, been around a while, fought some guys, therefore we can compare him to other names. So yeah, I'm excited for that at least, again, because it's a step up for Shakur Stevenson, and I've been begging to see a step up for him for some time. The guy has way too much hype. He already has a belt, or he did, because he's moving up, so I don't know if he technically vacated. He vacated, right? I forget if he did officially or not. But he's a former champion now. He hasn't fought a single top 10 name. Ridiculous. Team Batman Boxing saying Felix Verdejo and Elvis Rodriguez both on the card as well. Yes, they are. It should be a fun card for, again, what Top Rank can deliver nowadays. This should be a fun Saturday card that is the sort of after dinner, not dessert, because that implies that it's like awesome. After dinner snack, like when you're hungry at like 10, 11 p.m., and you go in the kitchen to find something to snack on because you're still hungry. That's what that is after the AJ fight. So happy for that. Guys, let me know who you have winning in terms of, like, not who's winning the fights. I think a lot of these seem like a little bit foregone conclusion. But who do you think is going to have like the best performance of the weekend? I'm curious. Like, who do you think is going to shine this weekend? Do you think it's going to be someone on the Showtime card, the Top Rank card, the Matchroom card? And who is it going to be? I'm curious. What's the highlight fight or fighter of the weekend for you guys? Really curious to see what your perception is. Moving on, let's talk about this god-awful. Let's talk about it. WBC has officially made rankings for the new division called Bridgerweight, which, I mean, every single facet of this story is just wrong. It's just bad. Like, it makes me sick to my stomach. First off, the name. Like, what is that name? Like, what is that? Who thought of that name? Who? Who? They deserve to be fired. Okay? And like ostracized from all of human civilization, to be quite honest. Whoever made that name was like, yep, this is the one. We can market this shit. Whoever thought of that name deserves to be fired, first off. Let alone the idea of like we need a division between cruiserweight and heavyweight. Like this gap that we need in the sport. Like tabling that for a second. Like the underlying premise. Just the name alone is the worst name I have ever heard in any facet of life. Whether it be like companies, people's names, food items, video games. Like, it doesn't like name any facet of things that have a name. This is the worst name ever. Ever. And on top of it, the division is filled with people that I'm not going to say I don't care about, but I kind of don't care about. Okay? Oscar Rivas is ranked number 1. Why? What are we doing this for? Who are we doing this for? Like, can someone explain it to me, please? I don't get it. I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Kudryashov is number 4 in the division, guys. Bryant Jennings is ranked number 6. Spilka number 7. Bebic is number 8. What is this hellhole? Oh my God. Isaac Chamberlain's ranked in the top 15. If Isaac Chamberlain's ranked in the top 15 of any rankings, that ranking is automatically invalid. I'm sorry. Like, this is breaking me. Like, in a way that I didn't think I could be broken in this sport. Because, like, we've seen it all in boxing, right? We've seen everything that this sport had to throw at us. We were wrong, though. We hadn't seen everything. They could do us dirtier and with less Vaseline. And that's what happened here. What is this bullshit? Like, there's not a redeeming quality about any of this story. And if you go like back into like Mercy Solomon, here we go. We're doing 20 fighters ratings instead of 40 that we have in each division, but we'll see for the future. Rankings are based on merit and quality, and that's something that will never change. Oh my God. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what to say to this. Like, this is the... Obviously, like, materially speaking, it's not the worst story in boxing history. But this is the worst story in boxing history. I hate everything about this. I wonder if this was, like, what people felt like when they, like, added all the divisions back in the day. Like, did they feel as sick to the stomach as, like, what I feel like right now to this? Lemon Ninja. Bridgerweight is what they should have been at the beta stage whilst they were thinking of a real name. Oh my God. Like the focus group for the name. Like, I want to know who was in that focus group. I need to know. I'm curious. Look at that son of a bitch right there. Again, guys, this story broke me. This story broke me in every single way. I'll say this. To try to give it any sort of validity, I'm not going to do that. Let me rephrase that. To actually discuss the topic in a serious light. Is there a need for this division? No. Heavyweight and cruiserweight historically in the last 20, 30 years have been very weak divisions. The idea of splitting them up even more so and dividing the talent pool doesn't make sense. On top of it, we've already seen cruiserweights move up to heavyweight and have a lot of success. So the idea that this gap is insurmountable is just empirically false. And the reality is when Mauricio Sulaiman says like our rankings are based on merit and what did he say? Equality? No, he didn't say that. What did he say? Quality. Sorry, merit and quality. That's wrong. That's wrong. Rankings are a pay-to-play scam. Okay, that is how it is. And the idea of creating more rankings, more divisions, is just a way to get more cash influx to your company. Because the WBC is a private enterprise. It's a private corporation. Okay, it's not a government nationalized entity. It's not a worker co-op. It's not a unionized company. It's a private corporation that's not even publicly traded. Okay, that controls the regulations of the sport in its totality. So not regionally speaking, of course, right? Like, it's not the athletic commissions in the U.S. versus the British Boxing Board control, right? Like, the WBC has international jurisdiction. And it is so clearly, again, a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme, man. Lemon, I'll get to that in a second. I see that. Obviously, I talked about it when the news broke, but I'll talk about it. And obviously, I'll break it down next week, of course. But yeah, back to this. It's like there's nothing you can really say to this topic other than this is ridiculous. And I hate everything about this story, and it makes me hate the sport. It makes me not want to cover the sport. It makes me not want to watch the sport. When the systemic corruption in it is so obvious. And it's just thrown in your face. And there's no real backlash to it. Right? Like, think about like the media class in our sport, right? Do they ever push back on sanctioning bodies in any significant fashion? Like, honestly? Do promoters do? No, of course not, because they're in bed with them. Do the athletic commissions do? No, because they're in bed with them too. You know, like, it's just... You know, what's the story? It's the Greek parable or myth of was it Titan or God or whatever that's rolling the rock up the hill, up the mountain, and it keeps rolling back on him, right? Like, that's what it feels like talking about boxing and talking about, like, the change in boxing. It's like, oh, we're changing something. Oh, no, it's rolling back down here. Bullshit. Casual base guy. How about the lawsuit New York put towards Facebook today? LOL. I did not see that. To be honest. It's been a crazy day for me. I'll go check that out. Lemon Ninja saying, I'm from the UK. Could you give your opinion on the Canelo Smith fight, please? I think it's a good fight. It's not the fight I would want, but it's obviously a top-level fight. It's obviously a fight that adds, I don't want to say legacy to Canelo's career, but like when you're in that stage of like that Pacquiao Mayweather stage where you're just fighting constantly like good to great opponents, there's sort of a compounding factor to that just creates a legacy in of its own, right? And Canelo Smith is part of that in a way. Like, we're not gonna maybe talk about, Sergey Kovalev as like a legacy-defining fight per se. We're not gonna talk about Canelo Smith as a legacy-defining fight per se, but or Daniel Jacobs, for example, another one that we can bring up as like a good to great opponent, right? But the more you beat up those guys, the more you beat them, then it's again a compounding factor to adding to or creating a legacy. It's a similar concept to the idea of like, if you're in a weak division, do you just have 10, 20 title defenses and create a legacy that way? You can absolutely do that. It's again similar to that. Where if you're at the very top, if you just fight good to great names, champions, then regardless if it's the guy you want them to fight, it still adds to the legacy. That's what we have here with Canelo. Like, Canelo Smith may not be the guy I want to see or the guy you want to see or someone else wants to see, but it doesn't matter because he's still a really good opponent or a great opponent for Canelo. And again, the cumulative factor to Smith, Jacobs, Kovalev, Laura, add like Austin Trout, like those names that aren't the best but still are really good. It helps. Absolutely helps. I mean, interesting. You're right. It's not a legacy fight unless Smith beats him. I mean, if Smith beats him, then obviously it's a legacy fight for Callum Smith, of course, right? I wouldn't even say it's a legacy fight even in that sense for Canelo, per se. Though, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really see a path to victory for Callum Smith. It's one of those situations where, like, he's a really good fighter. He does a lot of things at a high level, even though he's a little bit basic at times. But I think that's maybe overblown. I just see Canelo as having like the kryptonite style, the kryptonite tactics, the kryptonite abilities to Callum Smith. Like when you looked at the John Ryder fight, for example, I know that's highlighting just one specific fight, but just for the sake of the argument, John Ryder was able to get on the inside of Callum Smith whenever he wanted, attack the body relentlessly, but it was John Ryder doing it. Like imagine Canelo doing that. I can't see Callum Smith surviving 12 rounds of that. But it doesn't matter because it's still a really good matchup. So yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of it. The fight I would want to see, for those that are maybe curious, is Dave Benavidez. That's the fight I would want to see for Canelo right now, to be honest, or the Triple G trilogy fight. I know I said Caleb Plant's probably like one of my favorite fights as well, I think, in other shows. But the more and more I think about it, that Dave Benavidez fight is just like it. Everything about it screams danger for Canelo. And I don't get that same like gut feeling with any other matchup right now for Canelo, where it's like, ooh, I don't know how he wins that one. I don't know if he can just do Canelo shit and it works. Benavidez moves up, I think, says Team Batman Boxing. I hope not. There's still so many good fights for him at 168, and plus, I mean, there's a in-house unification for him at 168, for fuck's sake. So I hope not, man. I hope not. As a UK fan, Billy Joe, I think, is the tough fight for Canelo. I used to think that, and I'll add the caveat if Billy Joe Saunders goes back down to 160 and Canelo goes back down to 160, then I am absolutely intrigued by that matchup. At 168, I am not liking Billy Joe Saunders. I don't think he's really in the best shape of his life at this weight class. I don't think he can really optimize. I'll say this, because he's not in the best shape of his life at this weight class, I think he can't optimize his real abilities, which is his lateral boxing, counter boxing ability. He can't utilize that in the same way. So no, I do not see Billy Joe Saunders having any success with him at 168. At 160, it's perhaps different because Billy Joe Saunders is in a completely different shape, physical shape, at 160. Like look at how Saunders looked with Lemieux, just his body, right? Like just his physical shape, and then watch him with who did he fight 2 weeks ago, whatever, Martin Murray, right? Like it's a night and day difference, Like, and plus I saw him live fight what's his name, the no-name guy on the KSI Logan Paul card, right? And he didn't look in good shape there either. So now it's not just a one-time thing at this weight class now with Billy Joe Saunders. It seems like it's just a issue of, well, with 8 more pounds of him not having to cut, he doesn't get in real good shape. And you have Canelo, who, I mean, regardless of what you may think of his PD accusations and case, so to speak, right? The dude's like one of the best athletes in the sport. Like, honestly, like he didn't used to be one of the best athletes, but he became one of the best athletes in the sport. So, yeah, I just don't see Billy Joe having a lot of success. Like Caleb Plant, for example, could do what you probably think Billy Joe could do at 168, and he can do it because he's in shape. Like, Caleb Plant is a shredded fucking athlete at 168 that has the same boxing ability as Billy Joe Saunders. He may not have proven it as much as Billy Joe Saunders has. Like, Billy Joe has a decent career, let's be honest. But Caleb Plant has the same style, the same sort of strategy and tactics, and he's actually a good athlete. That's a little bit of the difference I have there Canelo versus Beterbiev is my number one pick. It used to be honest, but when Canelo said he's never going back up to 175, I just blocked out those matchups. Like Bivol, like I would love to see Canelo versus Dimitri Bivol. I don't think that happened unless Bivol moves down, which he's talked about, but who knows? And this dude is saying, what's going on with Bivol, man? Who knows? Who knows, man? It's sad. He's one of those guys where if he had consistent work, it wouldn't matter if he wasn't the most hyped, the most electrifying guy. Hardcores would be really rooting for him, to be honest, because he has that hardcore style, boxing-centric style, and has a great amateur pedigree. Like, there's a lot with Bivol that people like, and you never see him fight anymore, it feels like. And even like pre-COVID, that was an issue. So who knows? Who knows with them? Let me wrap up the topics really fast, guys, because I do have something to do today, unfortunately. I apologize. I wanted to do 2 shows today. I was going to do my General Strike podcast on our other channel today. Lemon Ninja, since you're a new listener. Trending Now Network is our other channel that features political, and I want to restart our like pop culture content as well. But totally different content that's not combat sports and boxing if you want to see that. I did want to do a General Strike podcast today, but unfortunately a family matter came in. So I won't be able to do a either morning show, which obviously it's not the morning anymore, or afternoon show or evening show for that. Hopefully tomorrow I can do it, to be honest. It's just been one of those weeks, guys. I apologize, and there's a lot going on health-wise with my family, so apologies that I'm just not able to get as much time in as possible doing this. I do really apologize. I love being here. I know a lot of you like the show, like our opinions, and like value them for whatever reason. You guys value our opinions. So I'm sorry if we can't give you enough content on these holidays with travel or whatever it may be. Though you shouldn't be traveling right now unless you're in a country without COVID. Digressing though. What else do we have here? Let's get to the other topics and just get through the rest of the news. Canelo Alvarez is saying that he is ready to work with anyone and everyone to make the best fights. I will say that it's funny that he didn't mention Golden Boy, of course, in the lineup, but like that's to be expected. Plus, Golden Boy doesn't have as many names for him. But yeah. And Scott, since I do see you talking about MMA, I'm gonna try to pull that up and talk about it briefly before the show ends too. I see you talking about it, and I'm solo dolo, so I can talk about MMA without feeling like Gary's glaring at me. What else in the news? Donaire is also off in terms of just bad news. Obviously, we were supposed to have Donaire versus Obali, but I believe Obali tested positive for COVID as well, and then Donaire tested positive. So, yay. Gilberto Ramirez, what is happening with this guy? I don't know, man. Apparently, he's going to be back in and competing in 2021. God knows what's happening with this guy. Let's just be honest about it. One like this, like talking about like Bivol style, like sad career like paths. Gilberto Ramirez is high up on that list, man. Like how could they not do anything with him? It's just ridiculous. Team Batman, thank you, man. I really appreciate it, to be honest. I really do. Gary's been having a really bad day too, guys, like I said at the very top of the show. So if you guys want to go send some love to Gary and some good vibes and say some prayers for him, I think you'd really appreciate that. If you want to hit him up on social media, link is below in the description. I know Gary would appreciate that, to be honest, and he's had a very bad day as well. Unfortunate, man. It's just one of those periods of time, man, where it feels like there's so much suffering, so much agony in the world, and it feels like collectively we're all dealing with it. And just on that note, I want to talk about this at the top of the show, but there really wasn't a lot of people watching at the top of the show, so I'll say it now. My little spiel here. There's a lot of people here that have been listening for years now, and I really value whatever relationship this is. I value this community. So if any of you are ever like feeling depressed, something's happening in your life, don't be afraid to extend some sort of dialogue this way. Okay, whether it's me, whether it's Rob, whether it's Foo, whether it's Gary. I think I'm speaking for us all, even though I haven't talked to them about this. I will speak for them all, though, and say that we're here for you guys during these times. So if you ever need help, whether it's someone to talk to, whether it's you need something done, this is a community that can help each other, that has been there for each other and has been loyal to each other. So don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. And again, even if it's just like, hey, man, had a really bad fucking day. Love your show, whatever it may be. Love talking to you guys. Can you guys do a stream today? Could you guys talk about something like get my mind off of it? Whatever it may be. Don't be afraid to hit us up. Because we are there for you as much as, even though you guys don't realize it, you guys are there for us. Okay? We wouldn't do this show, especially I wouldn't do this show if I didn't have such a great community here, to be honest. And I mean that sincerely. Like, you guys uplift me in a lot of ways when I'm down. Like, when I'm having a bad day, I come on here sometimes because I need an escape, and it's the perfect escape for me. So I appreciate what you guys have done to support me, even though you guys don't even realize it. So don't be afraid to ask support from us. That's all I got to say. Nothing but love for everyone out there. On that note, in a weird segue, I know that Scott Brown and others watch MMA, and he's been talking about it. Want to talk about MMA, of course. So let's talk about a little bit of combat sports. I'm not going to talk too much about the Bellator card because, like, I really don't care. Like, I think it's a good main event. You know, Velasquez versus McFarlane. Like, I've seen McFarlane fight live. Like, I've covered some of her fights. I think she's talented. And you have Magomed on the card. Like, he's a decent fighter. Like, Vassell, like, he's been a Bellator guy for a while. Like, it's all right. You know, it is what it is. I'm not too hyped on it. That's what I will say. The UFC card, though, Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno is one of those fights where it's a hardcore fight, but I absolutely love this matchup. Okay? Absolutely fucking love this matchup. Brandon Moreno is one of the most underrated fighters at that weight range, in my opinion. He could have been a real like prospect contender with his Mexican heritage for the UFC because they wanted to break into that market. But Jesus Christ, man. It feels like Moreno has never got his shine, even though he's really fun to watch. I think he's talented. I think he has some quality wins as well. And Figueiredo is one of those guys where he seems like a just destroyer of worlds, right? Like, for the boxing heads that are still listening, thank you for listening still. But think about Julio Cesar Martinez, right? That's how I think about Figueiredo. That sort of unrelenting violence coming your way. Oh, it's just beautiful to watch. It really is, man. It's amazing. If I had to pick a winner, I would pick Figueiredo, even though I'm a big Brandon Moreno fan. But Devson Figueiredo is just awesome. Like, I think he's too good, to be honest. Like, I think he's going to finish Moreno in a really bloody, action-packed, kind of underrated fight of the year contender, to be honest, late in the fight, third, fourth round. That's what I see happening. The co-main event, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. I love this matchup. I think this is one of those fights where, yes, they're mirror images of each other, but because of their styles, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think we can get a staring contest or a stalemate here. Their styles will not do that. They're too wild. They're too unorthodox. They're too exciting, to be honest. Like, Oliveira, the Bronx has always been, speaking of underrated fighters like Brandon Moreno at the top, Charles Oliveira is one of the most underrated fighters in his weight range. Like, he's been a perennial top 10, 15 guy for like a decade, man. Like, we don't think about it. And like in two divisions, he's been a perennial top 15 guy. I also think he has like some of the most finishes in the UFC history. I could be wrong about that, but I think he has like the most like submission finishes, or he's tied with that. Could be wrong about that. Tony Ferguson, again, unorthodox, really talented fighter. I think both guys have massive defensive holes, right? Both guys have massive defensive flaws in their game, to where I could see Oliveira capitalizing, getting a win against Tony Ferguson. And likewise, I can see Tony Ferguson capitalizing, getting an opening, and beating Oliveira. I don't know how to rate Tony Ferguson off of the Gaethje fight, where he took a hellacious, career-changing beating, to be honest, and the long-running issue of just his mental health outside the cage. So because of that, I would lean the Bronx. I would lean Charles Oliveira, to be honest. Okay? I think, surprisingly, he might be the more consistent fighter mentally in there, and that's weird to say. Scott Brown put a bet on Tony at -140. Ah, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. Moricano's on the card. I like Moricano. Kevin Holland's on the card. Against Jacare Souza. Jesus Christ, man. That's a matchup right there. They're just feeding Holland to the fucking wolves, aren't they? Junior Dos Santos on the card versus that French prospect, heavyweight prospect. What's his name? Seal Gain, or whatever his name is. I'm curious about that matchup. Cub Swanson versus Pineda. Mackenzie Dern on the card. Who else? Tisha Torres. Oh, I love seeing Tisha Torres fight. Always one of my favorite fighters. Chase Hooper, the son of Ben Askren. Always good to see him. Actually, a pretty good card, man. Like, even though like the top isn't really pay-per-view worthy, like, sorry, this is a good card. Like, I'm really intrigued by this. In terms of like the best card of the weekend, it's either the UFC 246 card or the Showtime card, and I mean, obviously the UFC card, just because of the amount of depth there. So, Lemon Ninja saying, I wish I could get into MMA. Growing up with boxing, and I've really tried. I just can't get into it at all. Shame, really. It happens. You know, like, I know tons of boxing heads that have given it like a worthwhile, like, good, honest try. They just don't like it. And totally okay. Totally acceptable. You know? I'll put it this way. If you watch a lot of boxing, a lot of the... How to put this? There's a lot of MMA fights that seem super low level in terms of like skill level, abilities, like, because you see high level boxers a lot. You see what they're able to do in terms of just hand speed and fluidity with their movement, right? And then you watch a UFC or a Bellator fight, start watching the undercard, and you're watching really stiff guys that are only throwing overhand rights, you know, these lunging left hooks out of range. They don't go to the body. They don't use a jab. I totally get it how a lot of MMA can be a little bit boring to say that comparative to boxing, because in boxing there's far more action in between movement, if that makes sense. I do think MMA has far more of an ability to like produce a sudden finish than boxing. That doesn't happen in boxing, of course, but I think just because of how skilled boxers are when we get them to the very, very top, you don't see a lot of skill discrepancy on the level of what you do of mid and undercards of UFC or Bellator shows. You just don't. You see a lot of bad mismatches because the ability and the skill level of some of these fighters aren't that great. That's just the reality. Scott Brown saying UFC MMA. I get the fights I want, non-boxing. Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre. John Jones, Anderson Silva. You know, I can just... Did I name some more? I could. Brandon Couture, Fedor. What other ones have we not got? Let me think. I think of some right now. I'll think of some more. Dominic Cruz versus Jose Aldo. I always wanted that shit. But the only reason you get more fights in the UFC is because of monopoly control or monopsony power of the UFC. That's the only reason. You have far more corporate sort of predatory control in MMA than you have in boxing. That is why. That's why they also get paid 16% of the revenue when boxers get paid on average around 70% of the revenue. Crazy discrepancy there. Guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Like I said, got to run. I will be back hopefully tomorrow with a General Strike podcast show. Link is, I think, below in the description as well. If it's not, check out our homepage on YouTube. You're going to see shows from there, so go check them out. And also, Liam, I know you may not be one to really care about my politics, but I am making a documentary series. I think that even though it is political in nature, I think it's really interesting. I've heard a lot of good response from people that I know that aren't political heads that watched it and were entertained by it. So check out that documentary series I produced, and I am producing. I'm in technically the 4th episode that I'm producing. Let me think. 1, 2. No. 1, 2, 3. Just 3. Yeah. I've released 3 full episodes. One that was very long, so I clipped that up a bunch, but it's released in its entirety. And I'm producing the 4th one right now. Really think it's good. Again, that's probably one of the few things I am legitimately proud of when it comes to my media career is actually this documentary series. So please go check it out if you are so willing. Guys, like I said, I got to run. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Patreon.com/Trending Now Network if you want to support the channel in any financial way. Of course, you don't have to. I know what the entire world is going through, and that's why all content will always be free. Guys, have a good one. Oh, remember, as always, fuck the police and free Palestine. Peace.